At the peak of his professional success, with vast fortunes seemingly within grasp, a prominent executive chose to indulge his youthful paramour in an extravagant getaway. He reserved the opulent presidential suite at the St. George Royal Hotel, the pinnacle of the city's elite five-star venues, a symbol of decades spent amassing influence and riches. He figured everything was flawlessly orchestrated, an idyllic retreat, shielded by impenetrable, noise-isolating barriers. He was certain his spouse, an elegant and reserved beauty he secretly regarded as little more than an attractive fixture in his residence, would remain oblivious. Yet he committed a single devastating error, a monumental oversight. Donovan Steele instructed his chauffeur to head to the incorrect venue. He strode directly into his mistress's embrace for a sinful interlude, unwittingly stepping into the core of his wife's territory and charging straight into his impending downfall. Donovan Steele straightened the clasp of his luxurious silk tie, his image gazing back from the gleaming black glass of his executive suite's expansive window. 45 floors beneath, New York City stretched out like an intricate web of circuits, a tangled system of authority and finance that he, Donovan Steele, Senior Vice President at Steele and Associates Capital, had conquered. He stood as a monarch surveying his realm. His attire was bespoke from Fifth Avenue tailors. The timepiece adorning his wrist was a Patek Philippe Nautilus, and the vehicle idling below was a deep Navy Rolls-Royce Ghost. These weren't simple belongings. They declared his triumphs, evidence of his cutthroat ascent through the ranks of business. His existence was a carefully sculpted work of art. His luxury apartment on the Upper East Side had graced the pages of design journals. His pair of kids attended the priciest elite academies wealth could secure. And there was his wife, Genevieve, stunning, refined, hailing from a distinguished lineage, though he always thought of it as faded aristocracy teetering on genteel decline. She embodied the ideal executive partner, managing their home with quiet precision, orchestrating flawless soirees, and never probing his extended work hours. Over 15 years, she had formed a steady, foreseeable, and, if he admitted it, somewhat tedious element of his impeccable routine. He perceived her as a solid investment, akin to a dependable blue-chip share, yielding steady though uninspiring returns. A subtle rap on the rich wooden door snapped him from his contemplation. "Enter!" he commanded, his tone gentle yet commanding. The portal swung open to admit Skylar Hayes. At 26, she possessed amber-hued eyes and waves of golden blonde locks tumbling down her back. As a novice specialist in the mergers and acquisitions unit, she was sharp enough to captivate without posing any rivalry. She represented the complete opposite of Genevieve. While Genevieve exuded timeless poise and quiet restraint, Skylar radiated energy, insistence, and an exhilarating openness in her esteem for his status and fortune. She eased the door shut, a mischievous grin curving her mouth. "Ready for our escape this weekend, Chief?" she murmured, reclining against his workstation. The aroma of her high-end fragrance, a present from him, wafted through the room. "I've handled every detail impeccably," Donovan replied, a smug expression playing on his features. He approached her, resting his palms on her hips. The presidential suite at the St. George Royal, ice-cold bubbly on ice, an exclusive spot at the chef's private table for dinner, and 2 days where your sole duty is pure pleasure. Skylar's gaze sparkled with surprise. The St. George Royal. "Donovan, that's iconic. I figured snagging a suite there with so little warning was out of reach." "For ordinary folks, yes," he noted, savoring her wonderstruck expression. "But the Steele family legacy still unlocks privileges, sweetheart. One quick chat with the front desk, a nod to a possible business deal, and they bent over backward to accommodate. A rush of customary arrogance swelled within him. This defined his influence, the knack for reshaping reality with just a dial and a word. He'd informed Genevieve of an urgent flight to Zurich for a financial summit. The deception was seamless, credible, infused with prestige, and demanding total disconnection. He'd even assembled a satchel of fabricated ledgers, a theatrical flourish that amused him. As usual, Genevieve had prepared his luggage with her serene, compliant demeanor. She had even prompted him about his hypertension pills. The contradiction was exquisite. "What about Genevieve?" Schuyler inquired, her words a hushed murmur, a flicker of doubt shadowing her face. Donovan waved it off casually. "She assumes I'm locked in talks with Swiss financiers the whole time. Likely, she's mapping out her calendar for the fundraiser ball or chatting blooms with a landscaper. Her realm is compact, self-contained. She'd never dream of anything amiss." He was utterly persuaded. Genevieve inhabited a lavish enclosure he had fashioned for her. She occupied herself with philanthropic causes, social teas, and reading circles among fellow high society matrons. Naturally, he bankrolled it all, granting her a lavish stipend that he kept her at ease, and he figured that meant she was happy enough. He'd persuaded himself that her absence of drive was proof of her contentment, rather than any concealed discontent. She was like a holdover from another time, a stunning woman out of step with the gritty hustle of today's ruthless pursuits. She had no clue about the cutthroat reality, the domain he commanded. "Perfect," Schuyler breathed, settling back against him. "I want you exclusively mine." "You'll have me," he vowed, drawing her into a passionate kiss. The rush of the forbidden, the bold recklessness of it, was utterly exhilarating. He was Donovan Steele after all. He set the terms. This getaway went beyond mere indulgence. It was a tribute to his invincible position in life. He was whisking his lover to the city's grandest resort, a haven for the entrenched upper crust, and pulling it off with his spouse none the wiser. The sheer nerve of it fueled half the excitement. As he cradled Schuyler, a sudden vision crossed his thoughts. Genevieve methodically pressing his shirts and packing them into his bag. A brief, barely noticeable twinge stirred inside him. Not remorse exactly, but a subtle discomfort. He brushed it aside right away. It was merely the fading echo of an outdated moral compass, one that no longer fit his world. The Rolls-Royce Ghost eased to a hushed halt under the elaborate wrought iron and glass canopy of the St. George Royal Hotel. A uniformed doorman in a flawless dark green outfit, accented with gold epaulets, glided forward with practiced poise to swing open Donovan's door just as they pulled up. "Welcome to the St. George Royal, Mr. Steele," he intoned softly, his tone deferential. He knew Donovan on sight, or perhaps just the vehicle and the tailored attire. Either way, it was sufficient. Donovan alighted onto the granite pavement, savoring the customary aura of entitlement that accompanied stepping into such a venue. This was where he thrived naturally. He wasn't some visitor. He belonged to the elite circle these spots were designed to serve. Schuyler stepped out on the opposite side, her eyes widening at the hotel's imposing front, a Beaux-Arts triumph of sculpted limestone, sweeping arches, and majestic pillars. For a second, she appeared daunted. Just a girl from a quiet town amid these titans. Donovan thought it charming. He linked his arm with hers, his grip steady and supportive. "Act like you fit in," he whispered, flashing a patronizing grin. Her momentary doubt evaporated, giving way to a resolute glint in her gaze. She raised her head high, clutched his arm tighter, and they glided together through the spinning brass entrance. The grand foyer was awe-inspiring, a shrine to opulence. Its vaulted ceiling stretched upward 3 levels, painted with a stunning mural of ancient deities reclining amid misty skies. At its heart dangled a massive crystal chandelier, set to hail from a royal French chateau, diffusing a soft amber glow across the space. The ground was laid in alternating slabs of glossy Italian marble, like a flawless mosaic. The atmosphere carried hints of blooming lilies and the patina of inherited wealth. Subdued voices mingled with the faint tinkle of crystal from the nearby lounge bar and the gentle melodies of a resident pianist, weaving a tapestry of sophisticated calm. Donovan advanced toward the reception area with assured strides. The desk stretched out like a formidable slab of varnished mahogany. A poised woman with her hair neatly pinned in a chignon and a courteous expression turned her focus entirely to them at once. "Good afternoon, sir. Welcome to the St. George Royal. Donovan Steele," he stated crisply, sliding his American Express Centurion black card across the surface. "I've booked the presidential suite." Her composed smile held steady, yet Donovan caught a glimmer of added admiration in her look. The presidential suite wasn't merely lodging, it symbolized power. It catered to monarchs, dignitaries, and business moguls. "Of course, Mr. Steele, we've anticipated your arrival," she replied, her hands swiftly navigating the computer keys. "All arrangements are set. Your bags will be delivered shortly. We've also prepared a chilled bottle of Dom Perignon 2008 to greet you." "Splendid," Donovan replied with a curt incline of his head, his sole sign of approval. He glanced at Skylar, who was striving for nonchalance but couldn't mask her delight. Discreetly, she was snapping a picture of the chandelier on her phone. He eased her hand down gently. "No snapshots, love," he said softly. "It's gauche. You're not here as a sightseer." She colored a bit but tucked the device away. "You're right, apologies. It's simply stunning." A bellhop, an elderly fellow with impeccable posture and a reserved air, materialized beside them. "Mr. Steele, please come with me and I'll guide you to your accommodations." They trailed him across the vast hall, their steps absorbed quietly by the stone floor. Polished patrons and a fleet of unobtrusive employees passed by, all moving in harmonious silence. The lift resembled a paneled wooden sanctuary, complete with a cushioned seat in deep velvet. As it rose without a jolt, the attendant addressed them in a subdued, polite voice. "The presidential suite is positioned on the topmost floor, sir. It comes with its own exclusive elevator access card for complete privacy." He passed Donovan a weighty golden key fob. "You'll enjoy a personal attendant, Mr. Henderson, available round the clock. He's ready for you above." "Excellent," Donovan responded with a touch of sarcasm. The lift opened straight into a secluded entryway. Before them loomed a pair of ornate, deep-toned wooden doors. The attendant swung them wide with a grand gesture and moved out of the way. The accommodation surpassed even Donovan's expectations in grandeur. It felt less like a standard guest room and more like an expansive residence. The spacious lounge boasted towering windows from floor to ceiling, providing a sweeping 180-degree vista of the urban horizon and the greenery stretching out beneath. In one spot rested a majestic piano, while another held a well-supplied liquor station. The decor blended vintage artifacts with contemporary flair, all covered in luxurious fabrics of ivory, gold, and deep azure tones. Skylar inhaled sharply, releasing Donovan's arm and twirling amid the open space. "Donovan, this dwarfs my whole apartment complex." He let out a deep, smug laugh. "This, darling, shows how the elite truly exist. Actually, scratch that. This is the realm of the top 1%. The attendant led a quick walkthrough. The elegant eating area, the library, the primary sleeping quarters with its towering canopy bed, and a lavishly tiled washroom that served as a stone haven, equipped with a steam room and a bubbling hot tub facing the metropolis. Once the attendant received a handsome gratuity and left, Donovan approached the liquor station and decanted 2 flutes of the icy Dom Perignon. He offered one to Skylar, who lingered near the enormous pane, captivated by the scenery. "A cheers," he proposed, tapping his glass to hers, "to an flawless getaway." "To our connection," she countered, her gaze sparkling with affection. They savored the premium bubbly fizzing against their palates. Donovan sensed an unbreakable strength within. All was ideal. Every aspect handled meticulously, every possibility anticipated. Here, in this elevated haven, far from the chaos below, he remained beyond reach. He had masterfully divided his existence. The elegant spouse in their upscale East Side residence, the thrilling paramour in this aerial fortress. He was convinced he commanded his entire realm like a skilled orchestrator, manipulating every essential lever. Unbeknownst to him, one of those levers, one he'd assumed severed and discarded long ago, linked directly to the core structure of the very edifice supporting him. That initial day passed in a haze of indulgent bliss. They summoned meals from an endless array of options. They relaxed in sumptuous lounging garments, fully exploring the opulent facilities. A profound satisfaction washed over Donovan. He deserved such luxury. The pressures of colossal business transactions and economic shifts dissolved amid this unparalleled ease. That evening, they savored a meal at the signature chef's spot in the hotel's triple Michelin-awarded eatery. The host welcomed Donovan personally, guiding them to the prime seating, a private alcove with a cushioned bench gazing out to the venue's secluded outdoor greenery. The feast unfolded as a symphony of gourmet mastery. Dish followed dish, each surpassing the previous in refinement. Donovan selected a vintage Chateau Margaux that exceeded Skylar's typical housing costs, relishing her astonished expression upon hearing its value. He displayed his dominance for her benefit, and she proved an ideal spectator. Throughout the night, he captivated her with tales of his business victories, sealed agreements, and defeated competitors. He portrayed himself as a contemporary giant, and she hung on his every word, her fingers lightly on his leg beneath the cloth. He experienced a surge of vitality, more vibrant than in ages. This was the affirmation he sought, the fervent loyalty his spouse, Genevieve, had seldom offered. Genevieve's regard was always subdued and reserved, a calm endorsement from an equal, not the eager reverence of a devotee. The following dawn, Donovan roused himself after a leisurely sleep. Sunlight filtered through a sliver in the thick silk curtains. Skylar remained asleep, her golden locks spread across the extravagantly fine pillows. He eased from the sheets, refreshed and at peace. He opted for a vapor session in the stone-clad bathing area prior to calling for morning fare. Emerging from the misty enclosure, he reached for one of the plush, substantial wraps on the warming rail. Its texture was luxuriously smooth, crafted from premium Nile-sourced fibers. He donned it and secured the tie, his gaze flicking to his image in the clear-surfaced glass. That's when it caught his eye. Sewn onto the collar in delicate, refined silver stitching was an initialism, a G entwined with a VGV. He furrowed his brow, running a finger over the design. What could it signify? He dimly remembered the establishment director's name coming up. Deo, maybe. Perhaps it honored the lineage behind the property. That made sense. The place embodied classic continental heritage. Yet, it struck him as a peculiarly precise touch. He dismissed it with a shake, merely some lettering. He headed back to the central area, the wrap fastened securely. He summoned his butler, Mr. Henderson, to set up their morning meal. As he lingered there, his gaze drifted across the space, now picking up on the finer points that had escaped him amid his first wave of wonder. He spotted the letterhead atop the mahogany writing desk, rich ivory-hued paper. Snatching a piece, he examined it closely. In the top margin, etched in that same refined lettering as the emblem, sat the interlaced letters. A subtle, elusive discomfort started to churn deep inside him. It resembled catching one discordant tone amid a flawless orchestral piece. When Mr. Henderson showed up pushing a trolley brimming with their repast, cured salmon, eggs scrambled with truffles, warm baked goods, and gleaming urns of brew, Donovan resolved to inquire. "Mr. Henderson," he started, aiming for an offhand vibe, "I've been taking in the hotel's emblem." "These letters," he added, gesturing at the paper, "they stand for Greevy, after the establishment's originator." The servant, whose expression remained a shield of courteous reserve, hesitated just a fraction. The emblem signifies the proprietors, sir. It served as the hotel's signature for ages. The reply came across as courteous and precise, yet revealed zilch. That brief pause, though, didn't slip past Donovan. He earned his keep by gauging folks. He could detect deception from across a conference room. The butler was dodging. Understood, Donovan replied, letting it go, though the idea stuck with him. Sipping his meal, those symbols echoed in his head. GV, GI. The sense of recognition was infuriating. It brushed against his recollection. A term, a spot he couldn't fully grasp. He recalled Genevieve. Her family name before marriage was Vaughn. Genevieve Vaughn, GV. The realization struck him like a solid punch. He set his mug down with a sharp rattle. Impossible! Such an outlandish fluke. Her kin had money once, sure, but they'd squandered most of it long before her time. Her dad, William, had been a subdued, ordinary fellow who died 10 years back, bequeathing Genevieve a humble sum that Donovan, naturally, had folded into his finances and overseen for her. He pictured William as a relic from bygone days, forever droning on about principles and heritage, yet lacking any true depth. He had run a handful of modest specialty inns, Donovan remembered, but nothing approaching the grandeur of the St. George Royal Hotel. No way, this was a foolish, suspicious stretch. Plenty of surnames must match those letters. Grant, Vance, Duke. Those seemed much more plausible. He glanced at Skylar, who was gleefully snapping a pic of her artfully plated food for her online followers. She remained unaware of his inner storm. "You okay, Donovan? You seem like you've encountered a specter," she noted, at last glancing away from her device. "I'm good," he retorted, his voice harsher than planned. "Just pondering the stock exchange." He compelled himself to unwind. He was acting foolish, poised for an ideal getaway, and he was allowing a silly insignia to rattle him. He was Donovan Steele. He held the reins. This realm was his lodging, his escape. The letters meant nothing, just chance. Yet through the hours that followed, that nagging disquiet lingered. He began noticing the emblem in every corner, on the delicate silver sugar clips, the embossed leather directory for in-room dining, the edge of the fabric serviettes. With each sighting, visions of his spouse's poised, tranquil features invaded his thoughts. The partner he believed he understood inside out, the one he'd pegged as straightforward and routine. The lavish enclosure he'd crafted for her now felt less confining and more impenetrable, a stronghold he'd never truly explored. The intrusive notions slithered in against his will. Suppose he scarcely knew her at all. For their last evening, Donovan aimed to revive the enchantment from the opener. He booked the executive spot again, this round opting for the full chef selection paired with top-shelf vintages. He vowed to dispel the odd suspicion that had shadowed him since dawn. He'd wash away his doubts in aged claret and reclaim his command. He and Skylar prepared. He donned a sleek bespoke ebony tuxedo, while she slipped into the striking open-back crimson gown he'd gifted her. Posing before the glass, a wave of composure washed over him. They appeared every bit the influential duo. They fit right in. The emblem was a figment, born from a stressed mind. They rode down to the eatery. The exclusive lift whisked them anew into the realm of subdued sophistication. The host, a suave French gent by the name of Jean-Luc, met him with an even friendlier grin than prior. "Mr. Steele, delighted to have you return. Your spot awaits. The culinary artist is thrilled to unveil this evening's offerings." They were ushered to the identical private nook. Donovan eased into the sumptuous cushioned seat. The known ambiance steadied him. He called for a flask of Krug to kick off, a toast to the occasion designed to be Donovan, banish the remnants of his silly doubts. "You realize?" Skylar murmured, inching closer and resting her palm on his. "This weekend has been the highlight of my entire existence. It's like being treated like royalty." "You earned every bit of it," Donovan replied. his assurance surging back. He'd acted like a fool. This was his reality, one he'd crafted himself. The initial dishes were exquisite, a refined vichyssoise of oysters, then grilled scallops topped with a zesty foam. Their chat flowed easily, and Skylar's chuckles rang out like a melody, wiping away any lingering uncertainties. He was on the verge of lifting his glass for a cheer to their shared tomorrow, when he sensed a faint change in the dining room's vibe. A hushed buzz, a wave of unease, emanated from the doorway. The servers, typically the epitome of composed efficiency, appeared more upright. Jean-Luc, the maitre d', was murmuring intently to a fellow in a somber suit, equipped with a security headset. Donovan observed with casual interest. "Seems like a VIP is showing up," he remarked to Skylar. Shortly after, Jean-Luc headed their way. His face, a polished blend of regret and respect, betrayed deep unease. "Mr. Steele," he started, keeping his tone hushed. "Something wrong?" Donovan inquired, a hint of annoyance creeping in. Before Jean-Luc could answer, the cause of the stir revealed itself. A compact cluster of individuals had stepped inside and now lingered by the entry, scanning the space. Leading them was a woman. Donovan's veins turned to ice. The champagne glass in his grip grew leaden, his digits tingling with numbness. It was Genevieve. Not the version he'd abandoned at home, the one in cozy sweaters and understated pearls. This was a whole new being. She sported a impeccably tailored midnight blue trouser ensemble that highlighted her lean, statuesque build. Her locks, normally loosely arranged, were pulled into a crisp, austere bob that outlined features etched with frosty composure and unyielding command. Her sole accessories were oversized diamond earrings that gleamed like frozen shards. She was accompanied by two gentlemen. One was an older, refined figure with snowy tresses and piercing gaze, a person Donovan identified with a stab of dread, Elias Sterling, the famed and infamously cutthroat business lawyer who'd been a trusted ally to Genevieve's dad. The other was the resort's top executive, familiar from the establishment's promotional images. They positioned themselves just behind her, akin to devoted aides shadowing their commander. Skylar, tracing Donovan's rigid stare, twisted around. "Donovan, who's that woman? You recognize her? She reminds me a bit of your Her words faded as the truth of the moment sank in. Genevieve's gaze scanned the area with steady precision before locking onto their spot. No astonishment flickered there, no astonishment at all, just a glacial, intentional acknowledgement. It resembled the stare of a hunter who'd cornered its quarry. The whole establishment had gone still. Patrons sat immobile, utensils suspended midway, their murmurs silenced. The sole noise was the faint tap of Genevieve's stilettos against the polished stone as she advanced in their direction. It marked the most agonizing approach of Donovan's existence. Each footfall reverberated through the heavy quiet, like a rhythmic toll signaling the downfall of his existence. His thoughts whirled, scrambling for a fabrication, a justification, a way out. Yet nothing emerged. The fragile barriers of his dual existence weren't merely fracturing. They were dissolving right in front of him. He glanced at Skylar, her complexion ashen, her crimson-lipped grin twisted into a mask of horror. He eyed the surrounding guests, their expressions blending intrigue and sympathy, then returned to his spouse, now mere steps distant. In her stare, he found no trace of the hurt partner he'd anticipated. Instead, he confronted an unfamiliar force. He beheld a sovereign returning to reclaim her domain, and a bone-deep chill told him he was merely a trespasser in her realm. Genevieve halted at their table's side. She ignored Skylar entirely. Her complete chilly focus bore down on Donovan. The aroma of her cologne, a refined, costly scent he hadn't caught from her in ages, wafted over. It was crisp and pure, evoking crisp winter gusts. "Donovan," she uttered. Her tone remained even, stripped of all feeling. It echoed the manner she employed for directing employees, steady and conclusive. "I think you're occupying my place." The remark lingered in the atmosphere, a brilliant stroke of layered intent. Donovan gaped upward at her, his throat parched. He sensed countless stares upon him. The polished image of Donovan Steele, the titan of all things, was crumbling like fragile crystal. "Genevieve," he stuttered, his brain wiped clean by alarm. "What? Why are you here? I figured you were still in New York, at the charity event." A faint, mirthless curve brushed her mouth. I called it off. A matter of greater urgency demanded my focus. Her eyes eventually shifted to Skylar, a brief, scornful glance that absorbed the lavish gown and the panicked face. She regarded her not as competition, but like an ill-placed chair in the room. "And I see you've brought company." Skylar huddled smaller in her chair, glancing up at Donovan with desperate, fearful eyes. She parted her lips to say something, but nothing emerged. Genevieve swung her focus back to Donovan. "I have to admit, Donovan, you've outdone yourself. The presidential suite, the chef's table. You certainly know luxury. It's reassuring that you value the family enterprise." The family enterprise. Those words struck him like a solid punch, linking the disturbing clues that had plagued him throughout the day. The emblem, GV, Genevieve Vaughn. I don't get it," he stammered, even as the reality slammed into him with overwhelming power. "Let me make it clear," Genevieve replied, her tone dropping a notch, sharpening further. Every syllable felt like a sharpened edge. "My father, William Vaughn, established the Vaughn Hotel Group 6 decades back. His initial property was a modest rural lodge, but he possessed real genius. He constructed a vast network step by step, using his bare hands. The St. George Royal Hotel stood as his crowning achievement, the gem of his collection. Upon his passing, he bequeathed his full controlling stake, every bit of it, to me." She halted, allowing the revelation to sink in. The whole dining area hung on her words, mesmerized by the unfolding real-world saga. "For a decade," she went on, "I permitted a select board of directors, appointed by my father, to oversee the firm's daily affairs. I favored a serene existence. I aimed to nurture my kids. I yearned to fulfill the role of spouse. I believed the legacy my father created remained secure, and I relied on my husband." Her stare fixed on his, and for the initial moment, he caught a glimpse of the profound hurt he'd inflicted. Yet it vanished swiftly, overtaken by unyielding resolve. "But lately, I chose to step in more directly. Starting from last Monday's yearly shareholders' assembly, I disbanded the board and claimed my due authority. I now serve as the exclusive chairman of the Vaughn Hotel Group, owner of this establishment and 117 more across the globe. That emblem you've noticed all around isn't for any viscount. It represents Genevieve Vaughn. Welcome to my domain, Donovan." The hush in the space was total. Donovan sensed the color fading from his cheeks. He wasn't a ruler in C's lands. He was an idiot who'd thrown a gathering in the beast's lair, oblivious that the beast resided there. Genevieve then aimed her attention at Skylar. "Miss Hayes, correct." Skylar dipped her head, shaking. "You work as an analyst at Steele and Associates Capital. I suspect that becoming intimate with a senior vice president, your immediate boss, breaches your company's ethical guidelines blatantly. Aside from showing poor discretion, your job is over. Mr. Sterling has already reached out to your employer's HR director and its governing board. No need to show up at work come Monday." Skylar emitted a faint, strangled sob. Her ideal getaway had transformed into a professional disaster. At last, Genevieve faced the man she'd shared 15 years of marriage with. "Regarding you, Donovan, our shared bank accounts, containing my family's trust assets that you so kindly volunteered to oversee, stand frozen. The Upper East Side penthouse locks have been reset. Your possessions are currently being packed and routed to your workplace. Skip heading home. You're barred from it now. She extracted a loan paper from her handbag and set it down between Donovan's meal and his wine. This is the divorce filing prepared by Mr. Sterling. My conditions aren't up for debate. You'll discover I've thoroughly recorded your affairs over the last 3 years. Sign it. Depart with just what you're wearing. And you won't encounter our children absent my explicit overseen approval. Resist me, and I'll deploy every asset at my disposal to ruin not just your profession, but your reputation entirely. I'll make certain the name Steele equates to shame and collapse in every finance network globally. Understood. Donovan managed only a stunned gaze at her. The partner he'd patronized, undervalued, and treated as mere ornament had just methodically unraveled his whole existence in less than 3 minutes, publicly, with the detached accuracy of a specialist. With that, she pivoted. "Jean-Luc," she instructed the maître d', who appeared ashen and stiff, "kindly see to it that Mr. Steele's companion is shown out, and hand Mr. Steele the complete tab for his visit. He'll cover it via his personal credit." She cast Donovan a final prolonged glance. It conveyed closure, the end of one era and the dawn of another. No animosity lingered, just a profound, icy detachment. Then, accompanied by her lawyer, as the hotel's general manager and board chair, Genevieve Vaughn pivoted and strode from the dining room. Her bearing impeccable and her dominance unchallenged, she abandoned the charred wreckage of the existence she had just demolished. For an extended instant following Genevieve's exit, Donovan stayed rooted in place, a monument to astonishment and disgrace. The quiet in the eatery shattered at last with a strangled cry from Skylar. She pushed her seat away abruptly, her features streaked with ruined makeup and incredulity. "My career," she murmured, gazing at Donovan as though encountering him anew, not as a powerhouse in business, but as the mastermind behind her downfall. "You promised. You assured me it was all handled. I believed you." He muttered the phrases, tasting them like bitter cinders on his tongue. 2 unobtrusive yet resolute security personnel appeared beside their table. Jean-Luc, the maître d', drew near, his countenance a veil of courteous sorrow. "Miss," he murmured gently to Skylar, "would you please come with us?" Skylar glanced frantically between the guards and Donovan, but he provided no support. He couldn't even hold her gaze. Mortified, she snatched her tiny evening bag and permitted herself to be guided out. Her crimson gown cut a streak of mortification amid the subdued hues of the venue. Once she had vanished, Jean-Luc set a leather-bound folder containing the bill on the surface. "Your tab, Mr. Steele." Donovan regarded it dully, flipping it open without enthusiasm. The total leaped out like a staggering fortune. The presidential suite, the lavish in-room meals, the rare vintages, the gourmet samplings. It added up to an amount that would stun ordinary folks. Yet for him, it ought to have been insignificant. He groped for his billfold, his fingers quivering faintly. He passed the black credit card to Jean-Luc. The maître d' came back shortly, his look even more strained. "I'm sorry, Mr. Steele. The card was rejected." "What?" Donovan barked in disbelief. "That's absurd. Run it once more." "We did, sir. Thrice. It seems the account is now blocked." Naturally, the shared finances. Genevieve hadn't merely locked them down. She had probably arranged for his secondary cards to be revoked as well. He rummaged for an alternative, a business visa. Use this instead. Jean-Luc reemerged, giving a subtle shake of his head. Declined as well. "Sir," heat flooded Donovan's cheeks. The surrounding patrons had stopped feigning disinterest. Their murmurs formed a subtle buzz of condemnation. He no longer belonged among them. He had become the night's spectacle. "This is outrageous. There has to be an error." Donovan's shout echoed, his tone escalating. The general manager, the very fellow who had stood by Genevieve, approached the table. His manner had shifted from obsequious to icy. Authoritative. Mr. Steele, do you have any other payment option? If not, we'll need to treat this as unauthorized use of services and alert the police. The warning lingered heavily, oppressive and stifling. Donovan Steele, who orchestrated billions in deals each morning, found himself unable to cover his lodging tab. The degradation was total. He carried no ready cash, no functional cards. He was cornered. Mr. Sterling, Genevieve's attorney, materialized again near the dining area's perimeter. He conferred briefly with the manager in hushed tones, then turned to Donovan. "Mr. Steele," Sterling intoned, his timbre rough as stone. "Mrs. Steele, or rather Ms. Vaughn, has kindly agreed to cover your balance. It'll come out of any scant divorce payout you might anticipate. View it as her parting favor." He nudged the dissolution documents nearer to Donovan. "I'd recommend signing immediately." Vanquished, Donovan seized the pen. His autograph, typically a confident flourish, emerged as a feeble, shaky scrawl. He had been thoroughly bested in every way. "Very well," the general manager declared firmly. "You have 10 minutes to gather your items and leave the property. Security will see you off." The humiliating trek from the dining space across the opulent foyer and into the lift proved agonizing. Each stare from a visitor, each covert glance from an employee struck like a tangible assault. The deference and courtesy had evaporated, supplanted by contempt and detached chill. Back in the suite, his possessions had been haphazardly stuffed into his luggage by a grim-faced valet. 10 minutes on, Donovan Steele lingered at the sidewalk beyond the St. George Royal Hotel, the identical location where he had pulled up less than 24 hours earlier, exuding regal confidence. The porter who had once welcomed him effusively now gazed past him entirely. His Rolls-Royce had disappeared, impounded, he figured, since it stood in Genevieve's name. A light rain began to fall, a chill and dreary downpour. He attempted to summon an Uber, but the service tied to his invalidated accounts. There he remained, clad in a $1,000 ensemble, phone rendered pointless and pockets bare, while cabs and luxury sedans hurried by. He was marooned. He set off on foot, the mist drenching the fabric of his lightweight jacket. He had no destination. His residence belonged to her now. His workplace promised only embarrassment. His associates, he realized, would align with influence and inherited wealth. They would back Genevieve Vaughn. The news, oh, he dreaded how this utter disgrace would spread like wildfire among his elite acquaintances. Spotting a vintage payphone from bygone days, he fished out the spare change from his pocket and dialed his sole dependable contact, a junior colleague at the firm called Frank. "Frank, it's Donovan. I'm in deep shit. Serious trouble." He attempted to recount the ordeal, but it emerged as a jumbled, frantic mess. Frank heard him out, and after Donovan wrapped up, silence stretched out. "Donovan," Frank replied, his tone strained. "I received an email from the board just now. It's concerning you. They've scheduled an urgent session for Monday morning. Donovan, they're activating the morality provision." Genevieve's attorney forwarded a complete file. Pictures, financial records, the works. "You're getting terminated." The handset tumbled from Donovan's frozen grip, banging noisily on the booth's metal frame. It was finished. All of it. Overnight, he'd forfeited his spouse, his kids, his residence, his affair, his career, and his wealth. Genevieve didn't merely outmaneuver him. She wiped him out entirely. Gazing upward at the dazzling penthouse atop the St. George Royal Hotel, a symbol of dominance towering over the skyline, he realized he'd soared too near the flames, unaware the blaze was his own wife, and now he plummeted unchecked with no ground in view. 6 months on, life had marched forward without him, abandoning Donovan Steele in the dust. The surname that formerly inspired awe on the NYSE trading floor had devolved into a hushed cautionary tale, a spectral anecdote shared with eager junior analysts on the perils of hubris. True to Genevieve's vow, her triumph wasn't simply his loss, it was an absolute obliteration. The crisis board gathering at Steele and Associates Capital turned out to be mere procedure, a swift and detached dismissal. His workspace got emptied before he could even absorb the dismissal. That overlooked clause in the company bylaws, the morality one, had transformed into the blade that cut him loose from his professional legacy. His existence now draped him in a choking veil of obscurity and defeat. The lavish Upper East Side penthouse gave way to a dingy third-floor walk-up in a remote borough, reeking of moisture and the aromas from adjacent kitchens. Those expansive floor-to-ceiling panes that framed sweeping urban vistas were swapped for one grimy window, staring at a tag-scarred brick barrier. The serene hush of his previous opulence yielded to endless blare, wailing emergency vehicles, bickering residents, and the creaky wheeze of the ancient heating unit. He offloaded the Patek Philippe watch first, followed by the cufflinks, then the prized artwork collection. Every transaction chipped away at his former self like a gradual demise, leaving just a hollow remnant. These days, he toiled at a nondescript outfit named Apex Solutions, a title so bland it stung. His once spacious executive suite shrank to a tight workspace beneath buzzing, unsteady overhead lamps. The titan who used to sway entire markets with one call now endured monotonous input tasks and regulatory verifications, jobs once handed to entry-level staff. His supervisor, a cocky upstart a decade and a half younger, regarded Donovan with thinly disguised disdain, all too conscious of his past glory and savoring the reversal. Occasionally, spotting vibrant, ambitious young women around the office who evoked Skylar, a wave of sour grudge washed over him. Not guilt over her shattered path, but fury at how his desires had dragged him to this pit. Evenings proved the harshest ordeal. The deep solitude in his cramped quarters felt almost tangible. He reached out to former comrades, those with whom he'd savored fine cigars and aged scotch. Most lines rang into void. The rare replies were curt and icy, offering flimsy pretexts before abrupt hang-ups. He posed a risk now, an outcast from polite society. Exiled from the inner circle, he lingered alone in his budget digs, tormented by echoes of his lost era, drowning nightly in regret-fueled swigs of bargain liquor. As Donovan wallowed in the swamp he dug for himself, Genevieve soared to new heights. Stepping into the chairmanship of the Vaughn Hotel Group, she proved more than capable. She was a force. The long stretch of subdued watching, of being overlooked and sidelined, had honed her into a sharp, commanding figure. She spotted opportunities the entrenched board, staunch traditionalists wedded to tradition, had ignored. One afternoon, inside the expansive conference room crowning the Vaughn Tower, she unveiled her flagship idea, the Vaughn Green Initiative. This ambitious 10-year multi-million-dollar strategy aimed to render the hotel empire fully carbon neutral, emphasizing eco-friendly procurement, clean power sources, and local outreach. A stout, graying director by the name of Gerald Campos, a remnant of the prior regime and her late father's associate, coughed dismissively. "Genevieve, I mean no disrespect, but this is a fine ideal. Yet the numbers seem pie in the sky. The upfront costs will erode our earnings for seasons to come. Our investors demanded dividends, not moral grandstanding." Genevieve remained unfazed. She met his stare with her composed, unwavering gaze. "Thank you, Gerald. I appreciate your conventional viewpoint." The term conventional came out with razor-sharp accuracy, implying it was equivalent to obsolete. She activated a control, and the display behind her lit up with intricate graphs and forecasts. "What you label as moral grandstanding, Gerald, I view as safeguarding our future. Our primary audience, frequent travelers below 40 with substantial disposable income, is growing more inclined to choose based on a company's moral standards and environmental responsibility. This isn't a cost. It's a strategic commitment to keeping our brand pertinent for the coming half-century. My forecasts indicate a temporary 5% decline in net earnings over the initial 18 months, but the favorable media coverage, stronger customer devotion, and state subsidies will drive a forecasted 15% expansion in market position by the 5-year mark. We'll transcend being merely a high-end label. We'll embody the conscientious high-end label. She halted briefly, allowing her statement to resonate. My father established this enterprise on excellence and heritage. This represents the heritage of the modern era. The proposal held firm. A wave of supportive whispers spread across the chamber. Gerald Campos slumped back into his seat, bested. In the shadows from one side, Elias Sterling observed. An uncommon grin of satisfaction crossed his features. The dormant giant had fully roused. Genevieve's renewed existence extended beyond corporate meetings. The lavish Upper East Side residence, previously a sterile exhibit of Donovan's achievements, had evolved. It became a haven brimming with affection and joy. She devoted herself to her kids, fully engaged for the very first time. She assisted with assignments, showed up at theatrical performances, and shared extended dialogues on their dreams and anxieties. She was uncovering the delight in those everyday, authentic instances she'd overlooked amid her pretense as the ideal executive spouse. She transcended the role of chairperson. She emerged as a parent, a guide, a complete individual at last, embracing her existence according to her own principles. During a chilly fall night, Donovan trudged back from the underground rail stop, his flimsy jacket's collar raised against the sharp gusts. The metropolis, once his domain, now seemed foreign and antagonistic. He paused by a kiosk. The vibrant sheen of periodicals clashed with the drab sidewalk, and there she appeared. Her image graced the front of Forbes. It was a striking image. Genevieve positioned herself on the terrace of the executive level at the St. George Royal Hotel, his former domain, with the urban glow sparkling below, like a tapestry of jewels beneath her. She faced the lens head-on, radiating tranquil authority and resolute assurance. The title proclaimed her ascension. Genevieve Vaughn, How the Unassuming Heir Reshaped a Worldwide Dominion. His fingers shook as he handed over payment for the publication. In the stifling quiet of his dwelling, he settled beneath the lone faint bulb and absorbed the piece. It was an encomium, a masterful homage to her brilliance. It outlined her eco-friendly strategies, her astute takeovers of niche lodging networks, her staff revenue-sharing scheme. It included quotes from competitors, expressing reluctant respect. Then it reached her private sphere. After a friendly separation from her former spouse, the text noted, Vaughn has channeled her energy into her family and her position as a revolutionary figure in the lodging sector, demonstrating that a fresh phase can yield the greatest fulfillment. Friendly separation. The phrase elicited a bitter, arid chuckle from deep within him. He played no antagonistic role in her account. He barely registered as a mention. He amounted to a revised error, an awkward element wholly excised from the tale. He released the periodical from his grasp. It dropped to the ground, her victorious visage gazing upward at him. He'd never truly perceived her. For 15 years, he'd gazed upon her each day, yet only noticed an echo of his triumphs, an elegant inert ornament. He'd overlooked the keen intellect, the enduring spirit, and the unyielding Vaughn resolve coursing through her. He'd believed himself the ruler of his realm, a central star with all else circling him. Yet he'd merely been a secondary satellite encircling a luminary, and he'd been naive enough to credit his faint glow as the origin of every force. He rose and approached the pane, fixating on the somber, relentless masonry that defined his vista. He pictured her in her executive space atop Vaughn Tower, surveying the boundless, shimmering vista of the city. A city now ripe for her dominion. High above, a fresh era dawned for Genevieve Vaughn, radiant and laden with potential. For Donovan Steele, stranded in the obscurity beneath. It marked an enduring and fitting dusk. Donovan Steele grasped the most brutal truth imaginable. The individual you dismiss most readily might control every advantage. He'd regarded his wife as mere furnishing in his flawless world, only to realize she commanded the whole structure, while he was simply a transient occupant who'd lingered too long. Genevieve's tale stands as a compelling, just a gentle nudge. True strength doesn't always shout from the rooftops. At times, it's the quiet, enduring energy that bides its time until the right instant to seize control once more. This tale weaves together themes of fairness, self-assurance, and the dramatic fallout from disloyalty. What did you think of the narrative? And where's your city as you tune in? Drop by in the comments to connect. If the story resonated with you, show some love with a super thanks. It helps me deliver even more tales like this one. A huge thanks for your kind backing. Can't wait to hear your thoughts below. Check the screen for 2 fresh life accounts I really suggest checking out. My channel has tons more to explore. Hit that subscribe button, won't you? Catch you in the upcoming tale.